Consider an instance when you were upset. And I don't simply mean when you're irritated with a coworker or frustrated with someone in traffic. Think about a time when you were extremely angry. If you can't think of anyone who has gotten particularly furious at you, remember that anger is a typical human emotion, but it may swiftly escalate. Anger over a parking penalty can swiftly lead to a broken mirror. A simple quarrel at the pub could escalate into a brawl. Wearing the incorrect jersey in the wrong place might be dangerous. But why is this happening? Why do we allow ourselves to become so violent, even over minor issues? These episodes of great rage may feel uncontrollable. People who are angry may black out and commit activities that they would not have done otherwise. Certain states enable passion to be used as a defense technique in court. Is this human nature or something that can be managed and eliminated? So there isn't just one answer. Psychologists have three major theories of aggressiveness that aim to explain why humans become aggressive and whether it is possible to change that behavior. These theories include the impulse theory of aggression, the frustrated aggression theory, and a concept known as social learning theory. This video will quickly discuss all three of these ideas of aggression, where they came from, and how they relate to our daily behaviors and attitudes. So first, let's look at the instinct explanation of violence. The original theory of aggression dates back to the days of Sigmund Freud. Freud's theory of conduct altered throughout time. At first, he thought that all behaviors flowed from eros, the life instinct. These were the instincts that kept us alive and eager to procreate. However, he concluded in 1920 that the life instinct could not account for all of our behavioral drives. Aggression, you see, does not always match with our urge to survive and keep others alive. So Freud wrote about thanatos in Beyond the Pleasure Principle. He gave this moniker to something he referred to as the death instinct. The death instinct helped to explain why humans become angry, engage in hazardous activities, and wish to relive previous tragedies. Freud argued that these two instincts, eros and thanatos, coexist in every human mind and that all behaviors result from a balance of these two inclinations. This may explain why we take out our emotions on others, even if the anger or aggressiveness is initially focused at ourselves. Eros triumphs over thanatos in an effort to keep ourselves alive. The aggression is then turned outward. So what did Freud advise we do with these instincts? Actually, not much. He argued that attempting to suppress anger was futile because it sprang from an intrinsic instinct profoundly ingrained in the human mind. This approach focused on building society in such a way that communities remained small in order to safeguard them. Strategies would be developed such that hostile actions may be directed outside of the society, thereby safeguarding all inside members. Next, we'll look into frustrated aggression theory. Even if you can't remember the last time you were angry with someone, I'm sure you can recall a time when they were frustrated with you. Frustration is a frequent human feeling that occurs when someone or something prevents us from achieving a goal. The aim could be as simple as completing an essay or as complex as answering life's deepest mysteries. So the frustration aggression theory simply states that aggressiveness is a result of dissatisfaction. Frustration is likely to escalate into aggression, but it does not have to if the individual has higher degrees of self-awareness or self-control. So without delving too further into this hypothesis, let us look at a study on frustrated aggressiveness theory. Aggression does not have to be directed toward the source of one's frustration. Even after the goal is attained and the frustration has subsided, the hostility may persist. In one of the first studies on frustration aggression theory, children were positioned in front of a wire screen. On the other side of the screen, there were several toys. And although the children could see the toys, they were just out of reach. They couldn't play with them. This was probably frustrating for the kids who wanted to play with the toys. However, once the wire barrier was removed and the children were permitted to play with these toys, researchers discovered that their play was more aggressive than when the barrier was not present at all. And there are several examples in your own life, as it is not difficult to connect periods of aggression with moments of frustration. Have you ever kicked or banged a door out of frustration? These are all hostile behaviors. The connection between frustration and aggressiveness appears to be obvious. But there's one more theory we need to discuss: social learning theory. The last aggressiveness theory is based on one of history's most well-known experiments. Albert Bandura proposed the social learning theory back in the 1960s. Bandura is most known for his Bobo doll experiment, which sought to explain how children learn violence at a young age. He suggested that hostility is just a learned behavior. We witness other people doing it, and children act aggressively simply because they are emulating what they have seen. So here's a brief summary of how the experiment went. Children were placed in a room with an adult, some toys, and a huge Bobo doll. And if you don't know what a Bobo doll is, it's one of those inflatable clowns that always bounces back up when hit. So half of the children in this trial sat in a room with the adult, who gently interacted with the toys and displayed very little hostility. The other half, however, sat in a room with an adult who forcefully punched or kicked the Bobo doll. Some of these individuals used explicit language or even whacked the Bobo doll on the head with a hammer. So what did we find? The children were then isolated from the adult and placed in their own room with more stimulating toys. And after a few minutes, the toys were removed on purpose to disturb the children. All of the youngsters were then led to a third room where there was a Bobo doll. Children who have watched aggressive adults were now more prone to engage in aggressive behaviors themselves. In short, the youngsters were simply imitating and modeling what they had witnessed: kicking, striking, or acting aggressively toward the Bobo doll. So based on this experiment, Bandura claimed that aggression is learned not just through positive or negative reinforcement, but also through indirect observational learning, which simply involves observing someone conduct irritation or violence. As I conclude this video, I'd want to ask you which one you believe is correct, because one of these hypotheses may make more sense than the others, or you may believe they all make sense together. There is now no correct or incorrect response to the topic of why humans become hostile. Frustration, as well as a child's death instincts, could have contributed to the Bobo doll experiment. But that's the appeal of studying psychology. There is always more to learn and questions to be answered. I appreciate you taking the time to watch this video on aggressiveness theories. If you have any questions, please leave a comment below. I also want to encourage you to see the other videos in my social psychology series. I've learned a lot about how the human mind works and would like to share it with you. Thank you for watching.